Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Burer. I'm Dean of Faculty at Dallas Theological Seminary, and I have the privilege of working with the best faculty in the world. And I want to introduce you today to Dr. Jim Estep. He is Professor of Educational Ministries and Leadership. Jim, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
The goal today is just to get to know you, and I would love it if you could just start by telling us a little bit about your family, and then we'll kind of dig into who you are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, my wife's name is Karen, and we met while attending seminary, and we got married in 1990. My wife has a PhD as well. She's been a professor side by side in the academy. She actually is still a professor. We have 3 children. We adopted all 3 of our kids out of foster care. So we are now a couple with 3 grown children, 2 in-laws, and 4 grandkids.
Well, congratulations. That's a full brood.
A full house. and 3 dogs and a cat. So, yes, the house is full.
Okay. So you did not get any training at DTS, if I remember correctly. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
Correct.
Okay.
I did not attend DTS.
Okay. So where were you studying when you met your wife?
We were at Cincinnati Bible Seminary.
Okay.
In Cincinnati, Ohio, and she was studying theology and worship.
Okay.
And I was studying apologetics.
Okay, was it undergrad that you met, or was it grad?
Oh, graduate.
Okay, graduate. Okay,
yeah.
Great, good. Well, thanks for sharing about your family. It sounds like you do have a lot of full and fun times with a lot of people. So.
Yes.
Hey, well, tell us about how you came to faith. I mean, we obviously, as professors, we do our ministry here because we love the topics, we love the students, but it's mostly because we love our Lord. So how did you come to faith?
Well, my parents really did not go to church. They were, at best, wayward Baptist. They attended church when they were younger, had kind of become de-churched. We went on Christmas and Easter because that's what you're supposed to do. They would periodically venture into a church, stay several weeks, but never continued. And so, frankly, ended up going to a church because of a bad rerun on Disney World. Sunday night, Wonderful World of Disney was on, and a friend came at the door. Jimmy, there's a youth group going on in our school. It's a new church plant. Would you like to come to youth group? Sure. Never stopped going.
Wow.
In fact, first people I invited to church were my mom and dad, because when they moved from the school to their own building, I wanted to start going. They were a little concerned. They didn't know what to expect. So they started going as well. Yeah. And frankly, I really met Christ in a youth group. And then through the worship service, professed my faith in my living room, and about a week or 2 later was baptized.
Wonderful. So that faithful invitation from your friend got you into the context of the church.
Yes.
Man, that's great. That's I've never heard anybody say that it was because of a Walt Disney World show. Right. But hey, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
He can work through anything.
So how did you get started in thinking about going to school, studying the Bible, theology, etc.? How did the Lord kind of guide you along those steps?
Sure. Well, I would say this: the way I came to faith kind of put me on that trajectory, because when I had faith questions, I couldn't go to my parents, and so I would go to my pastor, and he would recommend a book. And in fact, I started getting books. I remember when I was in 7th grade. My parents asked me, "What do you want for your birthday?" And I said, "I would like the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia."
Not what a normal, junior high guy would ask for.
It was like, okay, sure. Where do we find this at? Yeah. So, but literally, it kind of put me on the trajectory of I really developed a passion and a love for Bible studies. And as I read one book, I remember what it was. I still have it in my office. A Philosopher's Look at Jesus. It was a study of the Gospel of John. And on the back, it said the professor taught at Cincinnati Bible College and Seminary. And I said, that's where I want to go.
Okay. So you went there for undergrad?
And then stayed for seminary.
Okay. So what was your major in undergrad?
Preaching.
Okay.
Yeah. So I studied preaching, and then I went on for my master's work, and I did an MA in Near East Studies, so archaeology, an MA in New Testament, and then an MDiv with a focus in apologetics.
Okay. So how did you get to your doctoral work?
Yes.
What was because you got to have a doctorate to teach here. Sure. So what was that?
Well, I ended up transitioning to the field of Christian ed and did a Doctor of Ministry degree at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. Back in those days, they didn't have the D.Ed men. You did a D-Min in Christian ed. However, frankly, I became a professor at a small Bible college with my D-Min. And when they asked me to be academic dean, and I started showing up to accreditation meetings, I remember calling my wife from the hotel saying, I'm a D-Min and a PhD. And I quickly realized I needed a PhD, so I attended Trinity Evangelical Divinity School and worked on the PhD in educational studies.
Okay, great. So your undergrad was preaching, then your master's was, you said, archaeology and biblical studies.
Biblical studies, apologetics.
And then the 2 degrees after that in educational ministries. Okay, great. That's exciting. So how did DTS get on your radar? Kind of tell us the story of how you were in a little bit of a different world and you kind of came over to DTS.
Well, I first became familiar with DTS, honestly, through the writings of their faculty. I mean, commentaries, particularly Walvard.
Yeah.
Also, Howard Hendricks' works in education that were just kind of the standards of the day. But then in addition to that, had, frankly, encounters with DTS alums. Warren Benson was one of my favorite professors at TEDS, and he was a Dallas alum. And once again, just encountering people like that. And then, frankly, when I became a professor and started going to, for lack of a better word, learned societies, whether that was the Religious Education Association or the Society of Professors in Christian Ed, I met faculty there, particularly Dr. Jay Sedgwick, who's the head of the Educational Ministries and Leadership Program. And that's how we really met and started talking, and that led him to say, well, several factors came into play, but I happened to be ministering in Georgia, and a professor was supposed to teach at the extension site, had a conflict on his schedule. Dr. Sedgwick said, I know a guy who is in Georgia, right next to Atlanta, and could probably walk over and take that course. And that was my first exposure to getting to DTS.
Okay. So where did you teach full-time faculty before you came to DTS?
Well, I was 8 years at Great Lakes Christian College in Lansing, Michigan. It's a small undergrad college. I then went to Kentucky Christian University, and that's in Grayson, Kentucky. That's a little larger. It was more like a liberal arts school. But then I taught off and on full-time and also partial time with Lincoln Christian University in Lincoln, Illinois. And there I taught Christian education. I also served in the administration. Even when I lived in Georgia, I commuted back to Lincoln to teach full load. So I was at Lincoln really for a rather long time and spent 3 years also at a small college in Missouri.
Okay, so a lot of different experiences, yeah.
Everything from Bible colleges to seminaries to liberal arts to university models, all that.
And then you started adjuncting for us, and then we invited you to come full-time. So,
Adjuncted about 6 years.
Yeah.
And planes, trains, and automobiles.
Sure. A lot of travel.
Yes, lots of travel. And then, frankly, when the call came through to apply for full-time, it was really a blessing, and it was just a great opportunity.
That's great. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about your specific academic interests. I mean, Christian education is a pretty broad field, like a lot of our topics here, New Testament, theological studies. So what's your specific interest within educational ministries and leadership?
That's great. And by the way, I would say it has to stem from my academic trajectory, because I've had some people say, well, you didn't do any degrees in Christian education on the master's level and suddenly grab 2 doctorates in the areas of education. What happened in between? And really what happened was a recognition that Christian ed ministry was the greatest opportunity to use everything I was learning in seminary. I mean, that's nothing against preaching. That's nothing against the pulpit ministry. But I can teach on a Wednesday night. I can teach on a Sunday morning. I can teach a specialized seminar. I could do a retreat and use a lot more of my education in that area. But also, a friend of mine helped me articulate this. He said, Christian ed is the translation of theology. We become the engineers. Theologians have to say, this is what the scriptures teach. This is what it ought to be. Christian ed needs to come along and say, now, how do we put wheels on that? How do we engineer the church? How do we engineer ministry? How do we explain spiritual formation in such a way that it is theologically consistent and yet practical? And so that really was the attraction to Christian education, the opportunity to kind of enliven theology, to actually become the engineers, if you will, of the theological world.
Yeah. Do you have a particular area within that you are writing and focusing on at present?
My favorite class to teach and writing on topics. I always tell students this is the most practical course you'll take, and then it's the history and philosophy of education. And they go, wait a second, you said this is the most practical course. And the reason I tell them it's most practical is 15 years from now, the methods I taught them may be gone. They may be replaced. They have to be updated. The resources will change. But if you understand why you're doing what you're doing,
right,
and the heritage you've inherited, and whose shoulders upon you stand, that will last a lifetime. And so I tell them this is the one you'll take with you from now on, and constantly be revising yourself. Why do I do what I do? That's one area that I really do like to research and try to make it as practical as possible. However, one of the other areas I really like researching is adult ministry and adult education, and how that can be done in the church. That's where a lot of my experience has been when serving in churches, but it's also an area for teaching and research.
A thought came to mind when you were talking about your interest in the history and philosophy of Christian education. I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but I remember when I was in seminary, a friend of mine was over at the library looking at various theses, and he found one on the use of the overhead in the local church, something like that. And for those of you who don't know, the overhead was a way to display a page, and you would put a transparency, it would cast a big light. Totally out-of-date technology, but maybe there's some very practical things about how we communicate and how we bring people along that are timeless that you're going to focus on. So,
absolutely, yes. And by the way, overheads may be out of view now, but we use PowerPoint and projectors.
Sure,
we use
and document cameras and things like that. So there's some timeless principles even with that. So, so what are you currently writing on? Do you have any projects in the hopper that are taking up your interest?
I definitely do. I'm writing a book with Dr. Michael Anthony, who's also on our faculty, on leadership essentials for Christian ministries. And that book is going to be coming out from Baker, hopefully next year. In addition to that, Dr. Stacy Davis and I are working on a book on the human element. It's on human development. It's going to have multiple contributors, but we're serving as the editorial team. Brahman Holman is actually working with us on that one. And the whole EML department has put together a book that Kriegel is publishing. And right now, actually, I'm in the process of editing the final edition of it.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's on teaching.
Okay. So teaching and teaching process, I presume. Okay, great. So what kind of things are you reading? What are you enjoying when you've got some time to read?
I try to read one book a week. I had a professor tell me to do that. And then I actually had it was a pleasure to meet with John R.W. Stott. And he said, read one book a week. Then he said, read one book in Bible, one book in theology, pick, and then one book in practical ministry, and then something off of a top sellers list that would let you know how people are thinking. So I've tried to follow that pattern. So with that in mind, I try to go to Amazon and read commentaries, read theology text. I've been reading the HBR 10 Best Reads, Harvard Business Review. They collect the 10 best articles of the last 15 years and put them together thematically. So I pull them. There's one on use of AI. There's another one on making presentations. So I try to read those. A lot of my reading ends up being for classroom preparation. So I've also been reading on adult ministry a lot because I have that class coming up in the fall. Okay.
Yeah. Very good. That's great. So tell us a little bit about where you go to church and your church involvement at present.
I'm at Lake Point, Lake Point Church. The main body is up in Rockwall.
Right.
But we live in Forney, Texas, so we are at the Forney campus. We teach a life group on Sunday mornings. I tried to give it a creative name, but they just call it the Estep Life Group. And I was trying to get
at least it's distinctive. Everybody knows which one it is.
That's it. And so we teach that life group. We're also I'm part of a men's prayer ministry that meets on Wednesday mornings. And I'm also serving in a parachurch ministry called E2 Effective Elders that is designed to train and equip church leaders, as well as work with churches that are trying to to revitalize.
Yeah.
They recognize perhaps an unhealthy habit, and they need to learn a healthier habit.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. Hey, so to kind of wrap up our time, what's been the most fun thing about teaching at DTS so far?
I honestly have to say it's the EML department. At all the other schools, I was the Christian ed person.
Okay.
I was
one person in the department.
person.
Yeah.
So if it was a Christian ed course, my name was going to be next to it. Here I show up, and it's not just the camaraderie and the collegiality of having a very large field, but it's the fact that I'm teaching a course, and frankly, what happens is DTS says, "This is your course. You're going to be the one repeating it as it comes up so I can actually focus on a few courses instead of the whole catalog." And so for me, it's teaching in the field, it's the collegiality, but it's also being able to focus my attention on classroom prep and reading and resources.
Right.
For a very specific set of classes.
Okay, great. And I know that the EML department is just, apparently they have the most fun when they get together from what I've heard.
We really, really do.
Well, Jim, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate getting to know you, and thank you for being with us. And I hope that you've enjoyed getting to know Dr. Estep. And thanks for your time today. We'll see you next time.